Dane and Derek is an uncensored, unfiltered podcast. You can find content warnings in the episode description. Thank you for listening. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to our little corner of the internet. My name is Derek, and this is our show where we talk about art, Dungeons & Dragons, life, and Ma. With me, as always, is my good friend, Dane.
Hello, I am still standing. I'm still high energy. I write. I do law things. I still play music. I have podcasts that are somehow still going, even though I haven't recorded or edited anything for them in over a year and a half. We made a lot of content.
Yeah, you did. You made
and
thousands of hours.
Is it thousands? It's hundreds. It's many
It's
hundreds.
at least hundreds. It's close to 1,000, I bet. I'll do the math at some point, and I'll tell you.
Yeah, I'm gonna think somewhere in the closing on 500. Anyways, hello, everybody.
Hey, everyone, we're back.
Yes, we are back. Like I said last time, I'm in a mood today. We're still, for you guys, it's been weeks. For us, it's been but minutes.
Yep.
Hello.
D&D is back for yet another D&D episode.
Fuck yeah.
But first, let's do some quick updates. Dane, how's law and school going?
Law and school is going. Con law is the most reading intensive thing I've ever done in my life. That book is denser than the core of the sun. It's so and it's so heavy. Oh my god. It's gonna give me back pain. Anyways, I don't fucking want to talk about that. I actually have a different update about writing that I'm gonna give real quick. I have a new outline for a novel, and this is the first time I'm saying that out loud since I did it. And I'm really excited about it. Because I got into a really good habit over this past month and a half where I'm basically writing creatively almost every day, basically every weekday. I'm really proud of that. That's my update. I'm going to give no more facts. I'm going to take no questions about it because it's my secret thing otherwise, because if I share too much about my projects before they really get off the ground, they tend to fall apart on me. So
yeah,
anyway.
no, I think that's a very real thing. I was just watching this Dragon Ball Z fan film, and in it, the guy that basically him and 5 other people hand animated this thing over the course of
is it the fucking
Dragon
one where
Ball
Goku,
Legend?
Yeah, where it has the fire head? Oh
Yeah.
my fucking god, that was so cool.
Some Goku, the
Sorry.
savior of heaven.
Savior
So
of Heaven.
good.
Oh my god, that fucking animation is so good.
It's so good. It's
Oh.
honestly, I watched that film just to remind myself why I love film so much. And he made an hour long behind the scenes, and in it he talks about not talking about your projects or your dreams until they're almost complete, because you don't want to disappoint anyone or yourself by it not existing. And that's so real.
So that's why it's why I'm talking about an outline and basically nothing else.
Yeah.
Because it's I had someone read just some test writings I had to just be is this a good vibe? But that's it. That's all I've done for this, because I'm just and now that an outline exists, I'm happy to be I have an outline. Hooray.
Yeah.
That is a milestone on it, happy to say. But anyways, that's my update. How's filmmaking going? Are you making a Dragon Ball fanfic?
I wish I was making a Dragon Ball film. I have an idea for how I'd do a Dragon Ball film. I actually just got all of my cousin's Dragon Ball Z DVDs, so nice. I need to rewatch the Frieza saga at some point. But
question.
I will say,
what's the best version to watch? Dragon Ball Z.
Yeah, I don't know. I feel
because some people absolutely hate Kai, and other people really love Dragon Ball Z Kai because it cuts a lot of shit out. That really
I haven't seen Kai, so I can't speak to it. But these are all original.
Master.
Yeah. So we'll see what happens. But
in my opinion, it's Dragon Ball Z abridged. Some of their humor is bad, and early on, some of it's really bad. I'm not gonna lie, that some of it's really immature and just not good. Didn't age super well. But by the end, their writing is so good, so funny, and yet somehow really doesn't lose much of what made Dragon Ball cool. Anyways, continue. How's filming going? Year of the Monkey.
Yeah, You're the Monkey. So You're the Monkey, still going, still happening. I think still in talks with folks. I think to pivot away from You're the Monkey this week, um, there's been two unique developments. One of which I feel comfortable kind of talking about publicly now because it's more real, which is that I'm making a documentary.
Nice.
Um, I'm doing a
Nice.
documentary on an arts program that I volunteer with.
You
Um,
know
and
me. Love a good doc.
yeah, and it's maybe the first film that isn't entirely self-funded that I'm doing, which is really cool. Um, yeah, I get to come up with a budget on how much I want to pay people, which is exciting. Um, and it's going to be like a 2-year long process. So I'll have one project to work on for the next 2 years that I can guarantee I will get to do. And that's exciting because I love being in a constant state of production.
Hmm.
And to support that, I actually made one of the biggest investments of my life, and I bought a camera.
Ooh.
I bought a camera that I really love working with. That it's by today's standards, it would be considered an old camera, but for my needs and my productions and like the things I'm filming on, it's probably the perfect camera. Um, yeah.
Nice.
For those at home wondering, it is the Canon C100 Mark II. I got it from a guy in New York who was selling it for somewhere between 50 and 70% off of what it normally would go for. And um, I I've been searching for a new like film camera for like the last, I don't know, 3 4 years because the film camera I had in high school was pretty much on its last legs.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and I think like every other camera that I've seen or every other someone selling this particular model, um, it just didn't feel right. But this one, it felt right. The timing was right, I think,
hmm.
because I need to be filming a lot more frequently, and I have a project that will get a lot of use out of it on. And to bring it back to Year of the Monkey, I'll need to make a probably a Kickstarter video at some point for the film, and I didn't have a camera for that. And I was finding that filming on my phone, it has a variable frame rate, and so I can't sync sound, and that's been like really frustrating. Um, Minor phone thing. So yeah, now I have like a cinema camera, so to speak.
Nice.
That is what they call this style of camera, cinema camera style. Um, I think yeah, it's a camera I learned in film school. It's a camera I learned when I moved out here to LA, and it's a camera that I have had the privilege of like being able to rent and like film some of my short films on, and like it still holds up. It's still a great camera, like 1080p, 60 frames a second or 24 frames a second. I think the nicest part about it is that I enjoy working with it. It's a tool I really enjoy, and I think that is criminally underrated. Is when you have a tool you enjoy, like choosing to work with the tool you enjoy over the tool that is quote unquote better, I think is way more important than people
Right.
realize.
Right. To pull a piece of advice my dad gave me about bikes of all things once, because it's just not super related. He's a cyclist. Um he's pretty good. um I brag about my dad sometimes. Um he once told me to like never buy more bike than you can handle, and I was like, what does that mean? Because I was 12. And he explained that there are bikes that were better than him. Like, there is a technical quality to them that if you are a true master, you can get a ton out of them. But if you are not, you are just wasting your time and energy. Even though there might be a technically better item out there, you need the thing that you need, you know, which is
Exactly.
true of like instruments. Like, whenever someone's like, what guitar should I get? Like, they say online, this is the best one. And I'm like, yeah, technically, but I'm sorry, are you Slash? No. So
Yeah, no, yeah, exactly.
it's like, why don't we start you with an Epiphone and let's see if you
Hmm.
like it. And then you can get nicer as you get better. Like,
Yeah.
start with something solid and good, but you don't need every bell and whistle because you don't know how to use every bell and whistle, you know?
Right.
And like I did that when I bought instruments. I always do that same basic thing. Yeah, you know. And
Yeah,
also I think people underestimate the value of workhorse tools.
yes,
Um
yes. Oh my
like
goodness.
I will usually even if I feel my skill is worth something, like I could do a lot um with high end things, like I typically will still take a workhorse over that. Per
Yeah,
Because I'd rather have something durable and has like all of the basics down to like up to a science, but that's because I personally value the fundamentals over like really high end stuff. There are other people who are like all about, like, I would describe them as experimental, like
yeah,
filmmakers, experimental musicians, and they need every bell and whistle because they're pushing boundaries. You know,
yeah,
they
yeah,
want to do that, and I'm not. That's just never been my artistic voice. Really, is I'm always much more about like, well, I'd like to just do the thing very well, thank you. You know, like that's more of my personal interest. So I'm glad. That's awesome.
yeah,
Glad you have
yeah.
that.
So yeah, it's a fun tool that I'm excited to use because it has everything that I know how to use, but it has enough features to push me. Like the biggest difference is now I can film a flat profile, which means I can actually finally have more footage to work with to practice color grading, which is maybe one of the weakest parts of the process that I have in terms of filmmaking. So excited to
Nice.
practice that and to work on getting better at that while also I don't know, being excited to work with something. Because it's
It's
been
fun to have a toy.
yeah, it's fun to have a toy, and it's especially a toy that like you already know you wanted. Um, and
Yes.
and
Like
yeah,
it was always like I remember being when I was a kid, if I got to like the best times I ever got like a game console or whatever is after like my friend already had one and I'd gone over to play it like 1,000 times and I really, really fucking wanted it. You know, like
yeah,
because then I knew, yeah,
exactly,
that's awesome. I'm really happy to hear that.
yeah. Which in a way, workhorse and experimental and bells and whistles, all those things kind of tie into our topic for today, which is how to build the perfect D&D character.
Yeah, I suppose that there are some you could build a character with a ton of bells and whistles. Um, and there are some characters you can build that have like really good fundamentals, mechanically
Yes.
speaking, at least.
Yeah. I
Okay.
think yeah,
So I want to do some groundwork here.
great.
When
Go.
we say the perfect D&D character, um what do you mean? Because there are people who categorically think that there is a right answer to that, who are like statistically this is the best fighter and
Yeah.
fighters can deal the most damage, therefore perfect. Um
So, like tools and fundamentals and things that ground us in the things we enjoy, I think the perfect D&D character is a character that doesn't frustrate you. A character that when you show up to the table, you have a blast playing regardless of if they fail or succeed. Um,
mhm.
that is my
Okay.
baseline. And then I think after that, I think like it becomes like what kind of play does it achieve, right? Does the character achieve? Like
Right.
I've played anywhere from like here's the thing. Most of the time when I'm playing D&D, I want the power fantasy of being a fighter who can kick down doors and you know slay dragons super fast and awesomely. That is what I want every time I play D&D. And D. And so that is literally what I roll up every time I play D&D.
Yep,
The
and for
handful of
that
times
you
I
do need
haven't,
yeah.
yeah. What was
Oh,
that?
keep going.
Oh, the handful of times I haven't have been because I've really wanted to make a meme or a joke or experiment with like a lot of little things like playing a wizard, but I don't pick any of the combat spells, right? Like I
Mhm.
have like a intention in mind to like stretch the game. But for the most part, I just want to kick down doors and kick ass.
Yeah. Yeah. So yeah, I'll kind of add to that, which is typically I think the actual answer to what is the perfect D&D character is the character that is fun for you to play, that is fun for your GM and your fellow players to play with.
Oh, that's also a good thing to put in there.
Just whatever. If it fulfills all of that, that is the perfect D&D character. End of story. We could stop the episode now, because
Right.
that's all you need, right? As long as you are enjoying it and you're not, and other people are enjoying it with you. And all I mean by enjoying is like, I think it's better if like people are excited to play with your character. It is, in my opinion, good enough to not be a detriment at the table, though. I have played with people who, for various reasons, game breaking reasons, really shitty roleplay reasons, or any number of things, when they show up at the table, I have a worse time
Yeah.
playing. And that is the only time I'm like, I think you have a bad D&D character, is if you are making other people's time at the table worse, or you are not even enjoying your own time at the table. Um, it doesn't matter. It doesn't matter if you're not super optimized. It doesn't matter if you are super optimized. I will say this: check your vibe at the table. If you are the only one who seems to be dealing 20 to 30 damage per round at level 3, and everybody else is sitting in the 10 or less range, you may need to dial some things back. You'll actually probably have a much better time. And if you are still an optimizer, one great piece of advice I've been given recently is, the worst thing you can optimize, unless everybody is doing it, is damage. Um, and the reason behind that is, that will take away from other people's fun way more than you being like, I want to be able to heal everybody, or I want to be unkillable. Like, those things are way different.
Yeah.
Because that doesn't like take away from other people's awesome moment. Like, if you run in and you're like dead, 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 and then like nobody else gets to have fun at the combat encounter, you know. Um, so I'll say that's like my objective answer. I think for the purposes of the episode, I think what I'm going to talk about is more like, how do I make the perfect D&D character for me? Because that's
Okay.
all I feel really qualified to answer.
Yeah, no, yeah.
Um,
Go for it. I'm
yeah, but
curious.
I want to go back to you and your fighters for a minute. So you
Uh-huh.
start with the power fantasy. You either start with a power fantasy or a very specific idea in mind, in terms
Yes.
of like, is that like what you want to do at the table in terms of like mechanics, or is that like, yeah, what, how do you go about that?
Basically, yeah. It's always what do I want to do at the table first and
Hmm.
foremost because like I'm sure you feel this, but as a person that is basically a forever game master, you don't get very off there's very few chances to play. And so when you do get to play, like you want to maximize the experience for yourself.
Absolutely.
And for me, that's kicking ass. Um,
Hmm.
I think
Yep.
like, having grown up on like, you know, everything from like, like Conan the Barbarian to Lord of the Rings, like there's nothing more exciting to me than when like, like freaking like Aragorn like jumps off the wall at Helm's Deep while with the ladder into the horde of Uruk-hai, right? Like that stuff gets me going, and that's what I want to be able to do in game.
Yep.
Um, and so like I of course I do what you do, and I gauge what's at the table. And most
Oh
of the time, no one wants to play a fighter, um, because the
yeah.
fighter is arguably the most boring class. And out of all the classes, depending on what level, the fighter peaks the earliest. And so, if you're doing a higher level game, the fighter is the weakest, or it can be the weakest,
High
depending on your
level
party.
spell. It's very weird because, like, on the one hand, fighters probably can still dish out like the most damage, but that's very weird when you. It's like hard to compare that against like a wish spell. Like, it's like,
Yeah,
yeah, as a fighter, I can deal 150 damage easy in a turn, but the wizard can just say, "I would like to be a gold dragon now, thank you," and then they are. You know,
yeah.
like it's
It's
very strange. It's apples and oranges. It's very hard to compare. Um,
exactly. But I will say for the most of the games that I'm in, which just very rarely these days have they peaked level 10. Like the
yeah,
fighter is still like the one class no one wants to play, and it's always the class that for me at least I have the most. That's like where the fighter really shines is levels 1 through 10. And so that's where I have the most fun. Like I played in a campaign where I played a fighter, and I was like, he's like 8 feet tall, he's 14 years old, he really likes chocolate, he's a dragonborn, so he's really intimidating, but he hasn't hit puberty yet, and he wields a big sword, and that's what I titled it on my Roll20. The weapon was not great sword; it was big sword. And whenever big sword came out, it was always a big deal. Um, and then like it was a lot of fun because like yeah, I could kick ass, and because I was such a big character and I was really strong. Eventually, I was dual wielding two big swords, and it was awesome, and it was stupid, and I was having a great time. And like it's just like for me, it's like this desire to like real like let the like 4-year old who thought he was gonna be 8 feet tall and a dragon with a big sword like out. Like
Yeah,
I basically just play like every meathead. I play every himbo meathead, and I love it. I love it to death. Um,
super fair.
and then like the few times I've switched it up, it's yeah because there's something mechanically that's interesting. Like how can I use every fire spell except for fireball? How can I
Right.
use arcane lock and knock and illusions to like build a character? How can I be a druid who's primarily in wild shape form and has to roll wild shape to become human again? Like, how do
Mhm.
I do something interesting there versus how do I kick ass? And I think, like, ironically, a lot of my favorite characters have not been fighters um, because they've been
Fair.
so radically different. But I think, like, overall, it comes from, like, what is the experience I'm hoping to get at the table? And 9 times out of 10, I just want to kick ass. Um, and so that means like building a character around something cool, in my opinion. Um, whether that's being a bear majority of the session, or wielding a big sword, or wielding some kind of like a silly weapon. Like I really want to make a character that's really good at a fishnet, like a fighter that is really good with a fishnet.
Mhm,
And like
mhm.
that's like his whole thing. Like use the net and like harpoon, and that's like it. um, like it's just a real interesting kind of concept there. But yeah,
Yeah.
I don't know. But then again, like it's also because like there's less rules for a fighter. There's a lot less to memorize. I don't want to think as much at the table. Maybe that's the
Fair.
other thing too. But yeah, did
I
that answer the
find
question?
totally. I find that fighters and rogues in particular, because they are a little shorter on mechanics often, um, they they will be in a position to just like barbarians too. Although barbarians, because of their rage, often get like stuck in like just pure combat. There's in your limitations, there is increased creativity in problem solving.
Mm-hmm.
I find that for sure. So no, that totally answers my question. Because I find myself doing something similar, but a little different. Lately, I find I sort of start my character creation by going through the internet and finding cool fantasy character art, for like
Oh,
certain
fun.
inspiration.
Mm-hmm.
Because the thing, I don't have a particular class that I just like constantly fall back to. um, I tend to favor offensive magic users above all else. A very or like a offensive sort of Gish style.
Yeah.
Those will be what I will fall back on for sure. And like push comes to shove, warlock, but like, um, like I don't have a particular one. What I like is having like a very cool like character aesthetic, that will get me to leave my own like personality a little bit more. So I usually try
Mm.
and find like really evocative art that is not like the last thing I want to play is like a white dude, human or elf dude with brown hair. Like that, like I do not want to play that guy because I will just play myself. Um and I don't, and like
Gotcha.
usually like a very self-righteous version of myself, and so I'm just like, nah. Um so like I will go looking for art, and then I'll kind of match the class to the art a little bit. And I tend to be a little bit of a, I don't have a big problem being the person who fills in a gap for the party. um like I'm happy to play a
Mm.
cleric. Because what I end up liking doing is I like being extremely competent. Like I love being really, really competent. um on in the game. And that's why I often will fall back on charisma based characters. Um
Mm,
because charisma is a utility stat as well as if you can make it your offensive stat too. Um
mhm,
it it's just like I like narrowing down on to be like, okay, I just need charisma and constitution done. You know, um and so like I will that's why warlock usually works really well for me. I don't usually like playing utility. That's the one thing I usually don't like playing. So things like bard usually don't really do much for me. I
mhm.
will like playing a healer. But usually I'll be like, well, yeah, if I'm gonna be the healer, it's gonna be like my secondary thing. It's like, yeah, I'm a Tempest cleric first and a healer second, you know. So there's stuff like that, but the real thing I like doing is coming up with a combo, basically.
Mhm.
Like a really effective combo on the battlefield. And so like for example, with with a warlock I played recently, I had a fly speed, and so I took the invocation that made the range of Eldritch Blast like 1,000 fucking yards or whatever. Um, and so I would just go from like 1,000 feet up and snipe, you know, and I would just hex the crap out of things and do stuff like that. And I would just like I like racking up combinations of various kinds. Currently, I might end up playing in a game with a friend who's just recently moved back to the Front Range, and I'm currently putting together a divination wizard. With the idea of being like I'm going to force failed saves onto enemies. In order to get like some of those really good effect spells, you know, your hold persons or whatnot, or banishment or whatever, that are really good. But if the spell save goes off, like, well, shit, you just wasted a fourth level spell slot or whatever. But
Mm.
the divination wizard lets you replace enemy rolls with a roll that you already know. And so like I'm hoping to roll like twos and ones and just like hang on to it and just be like, no, they rolled a two. Um so they're now banished, right? Like forcing that and then like doing that with like different combos of like one I've found is Hex, Hold Person, and Scorching Ray.
Mhm.
Um, so Scorching Ray lets you make multiple attacks. Hex does extra damage based on attacks. And then if you are within 5 feet of your enemy while they are paralyzed, you get crits. Um,
Mm.
and so that would be because each one is also an individual attack, it would then get doubled. So basically, if I could do like hold person and guarantee it, then I could come up on the next turn and do this scorching ray on an already hexed enemy. Um, and I think that would be 18d6 if I don't upcast. That would just be flat. Um,
Oh, man.
yeah, if I upcast, then it would be 24 or whatever.
And this is why I play fighters because
Right, right. And this is why spellcasters are fun. It for me is that
yeah.
they do weird combos better. But
Mhm.
that's the idea. Like for me, that's what's really fun because I like pairing that with then RP, like role playing stuff of like, yeah, this is like a very capable person and very powerful. And what's that like? Like, what's it like to
Yeah.
be that person? And how can you make that positive or whatnot? Like, one of my most favorite characters I've played recently, um, she didn't do a ton of offensive damage. It was in Dungeon World and I was playing a homebrew class that was kind of very witchery. Um, but what I basically ran up is like, I basically could never miss. Is like I could
Mhm.
rack up so many bonuses that I could just more or less guarantee hits. And the other thing I could do was counter um, attacks and things. So I was like basically playing a blue black deck as like a
Uh-huh.
D&D character. Um,
Yeah.
and
I
it was like
mean
all murders and counter spells. And so that's like the thing that ends up happening for me is I basically do in like whatever the mechanics I'm working with is I build like more or less like a magic deck in terms of like combos and weird little effects that can build off of each other. And then I'm like, okay, I also have this cool art. Now where's the character in it? Um, that's how I build like the character I'm going to get the most out of. Um,
Mm,
and typically I try to be somebody who can be awesome at the table for people. Um, which is why I loved that last character I mentioned who could do all these counters, is because I wasn't dealing that much damage. But what I could do is if something really bad was about to happen to one of my friends, I would spend one of my counters on that and I would just stop it dead in its tracks. Like I would do that and then I'd
mm,
like up my bonuses so I couldn't fuck up my roll to protect them. So I was this like weird protector tank without high armor or high hit points either.
mhm.
But I went the whole game and never took damage. Um,
Yeah, see, that's I've never had a character that well built. But I will say, like, what you were talking about, how like having a character good at the table and having a character that can protect people at the table. I wonder if this is maybe something that is just like a thing that comes when you're a forever game master and you've been playing for a while. Like 9 times out of 10, I'm the most experienced, quote unquote, most experienced player at the table, right?
mhm.
I've been
Yeah.
playing the longest. I've GM'd the most games. I know all the rules.
Yep.
And so I always try to make sure that the character I'm playing is not going to be either A, the center of attention, B, metagaming all the time, C, doing everything for everyone else. And so I always try to come up with characters that are A, like fill a gap, which in my case, thank goodness, has been fighters. Because everyone that I know loves playing casters, and so I always end up getting to play a fighter, which is fantastic.
Mhm.
And then, you know, needing a character that can kind of, when the party is overthinking, I can kick down a door and kind of like jumpstart things. Or like see,
Yeah.
like when people are casting, I can be the meat shield in between them and the enemy. And so like I think like maybe that's just a symptom of like, because you know the game and you know the dynamics of the table, we're able to create a character that fills those dynamics in a way that like in previous games that we've played in, we didn't get a chance to do, or that didn't happen, and that's why they were shitty games or shitty
Yeah.
groups, right?
Yeah.
Um,
For sure, for sure. Yeah,
which
like I was talking about that wizard with that wild combo, and all that,
uh
but, um, I wanna pull that combo off because that sounds fun as hell. The real thing I think I'm gonna end up doing is paralyzing enemies so our other players can go up and get a bunch of crits. Like,
yeah,
that's what
exactly.
that's what I really think I'm gonna end up doing, you know? But yeah, like I think about that, and the one thing I've learned, and you were talking about like I can't play this like person who does everything for you. The one thing I'm learning more and more, and this kind of cuts against my whole like I really like charisma based characters. It's kind of a shame for me in this way. Um, I don't I if I play a face, like if I play a high charisma character, because I have so much knowledge about the game, I will often start dominating the table, which
Yeah,
I don't like doing, because then I'm
yeah.
really good in combat and I'm really good at in talking to people and getting my way, and um you know and so like I
Hmm.
don't think that's a great move for me. But what I have realized is I also don't like not playing I like playing characters with enough knowledge about things to be a resource for other players. um, so usually I'm finding myself more and more playing high intelligence and high wisdom classes, such that I can be support and provide like advice in like conversations where I can be like, "Yo, do not do that. That is a bad idea." But I
Hmm.
have a charisma of -2, so you're gonna have to talk about it. But here's the information you need. You go say it in a pretty way now. Would you mind? you know. Like things
Yeah,
like that, or providing tools, um, for other players. And then like I like being like uh, a tank in combat, such that like I can keep my friends safe. It's fun for me.
yeah. If I had to build a magic deck, my characters are all mono red, which is
well,
exactly how I play Magic.
well, it sounds like your characters would be red white to me, or red green,
Maybe,
because you get
yeah,
kind
yeah,
of tanky, little stompy, maybe.
yeah.
Uh,
Big things, big blades. Like
red white often
I
is very has like a lot of like people with swords too.
yeah. I
Yeah.
think I'm one step away from playing Barbarian, and I think the only reason why I don't is because I still don't understand rage rules. And so I always play, fun fact, I always play fighter and I always play champion. I never deviate, which is like, I feel like that's like pretty bonkers to say because, mechanically speaking, Battle Master is the better of what's in the player's guide. Like,
Arguably, Battlemaster is just the best
yeah,
class
it
from just
is.
a pure mechanics standpoint. Like
Yeah,
maybe a wizard or bard might have the spell casting, and maybe a paladin or a hexblade might be able to nova a bit better. But
but yeah, I
but
always play champion. Um,
it's
which,
straightforward. It's fun.
yeah, it's and honestly, it's like for the most part, most of the games I'm in, like, sometimes they don't last a long time, or they're just one shots, and so like I'm only gonna get like 5 hours to kick ass before I have
Right.
to go and
Yeah.
then run a game.
That will
Which
yeah,
like
that changes what I'll play for sure, for sure,
yeah,
for sure. Like, if I
um,
have some faith that this is gonna be some growth over time, I'm much more likely to play something like a wizard, or a cleric.
mm,
On the other hand, if it's just like a one shot, that's when you're gonna find me just like picking up a warlock or picking up a fighter, honestly.
mhm,
Maybe like Totem of the Bear Barbarian, something that is
mm,
gonna get like, because like in a one shot, you're probably gonna get to you're either gonna start at level somewhere between level 1 and level 5, and so like if that's my parameters, and I'm like, we're not going any further than this, those are the classes where I'm like, this comes online right away. I get all sorts of fun stuff right at the beginning, and I can have all my fun. I can play combos. Those are classes where the combos come early, basically.
mhm,
Um, yeah, but
yeah. Yeah, I mean, honestly, like, I've only played in one long game as a player in recent years, and in, like, the last maybe 5 years, I've maybe only played in, like, one long game, and I didn't know if it was gonna last a long time, but I also didn't want to metagame or, like, it was with a group of people I was new to, and so
yeah.
I rolled up a fighter, and I had, like, a very simple storyline, and it got resolved, like, 10 sessions in, and we kept playing. We played, like, for, like, 30 more sessions, um, and I, like, realized, like, "Oh, no, I have, like, no more character growth," like, I keep doing the same things, like, there's nothing. I was running out of things to do in game, and so I had to come up with more things,
Hmm.
and I think,
Hmm.
like, I probably could have allowed myself a little more space to have a character that grows, um, which, like, I wonder, like, how many. I know that right now you're playing more tabletop games than I am, um, and I'm
Yeah.
wondering how many of those are games you're playing in, and how many of those games are you game mastering?
Currently, I am only running one campaign. It's just broken up amongst a couple of groups, and they kind of
Mhm,
swap in. Um, so I'm playing a lot, but it's all the same thing, and I'm game mastering. Campaign I was also game mastering, just more or less ended. We're gonna do an epilogue where they get to run through Tomb of Horrors because that's fun, and they got to a high enough level that it will be fine. Um, and that I was running through the pandemic. I got to play in two long term games that each lasted about a year. Um,
mm.
and one, I played a very Herculean style character. Um, she was basically just a big old fighter barbarian kind of
Oh, yeah,
lady.
you were telling me about her.
Yeah, who was trying to become a god.
A
And that
god,
was very
yeah.
fun. That one, because my plot line had like very clear acts, the campaign ended up following my character's arc. Like when my arc ended, the game was over. Um, and I didn't love that, gonna be honest, like that
Mm,
dynamic by the end. I was very tired, which is why I then built up that like counter character for the next game, with the
mhm,
idea that I would take a bigger back seat. That did not work out quite so well either because the table dynamics got kind of weird, and so there was a need for like somebody to play leader and make everybody play nice, with each other,
mm,
and so I ended up doing a lot of that. It was not very like that character's like plot got resolved pretty early, but the character growth was resolving around like becoming much more motherly as a character and much
Mhm.
more like caring about others and like taking people under their wing. And so everybody else's business kind of became my business in the sense of like, I'm here to support you and help you get your thing. And so I
Mhm.
never had that problem, even though my stuff was done. I was like, yeah, that doesn't matter. She's here for her, for these people who are all sort of, she was an elf who was like centuries older than like the next oldest person. So she's like, these are
Mm.
all children and they're all my children now, I guess. Fuck. Um, and so like I'm going to help them do all of their things and make sure that they get what they need. And so there was a constant reason to keep adventuring and keep caring and be invested, which really helped. Um, but yeah, there were some unfortunate table dynamics at that game by the end. Um, and so I ended up taking a much more like front, like it wasn't a main character space, but it was definitely like a front of stage role in a sense than I expected for sure.
Mhm.
Um, like I guess I was expecting to play like a Legolas or Gimli, and instead I was playing Gandalf. Um,
Oh,
if that makes sense.
interesting, yeah.
Like very much at the front, not the main character, distinctly not one of the protagonists in the in that proper way, but like I am really in everybody's business.
Right, you're
I'm not
definitely
just
doing
there
shit.
to yeah, I'm not just there to like shoot arrows or something and be like a cheerleader. I'm like orchestrating things. So it was a very interesting game. Really loved that character. Wish the table had been a bit better, but what are you gonna do?
Yeah. Mhm.
Yeah.
Man, maybe this is a discussion for another episode, but there are 2 big things I've discovered about myself in terms of
Hmm.
playing tabletop games.
Yeah.
One is that I think I'm actually a better player than I am a game master,
Hmm.
which is something that that I did not believe for a long time. But then I was looking at all the games I've run, and I realized, like, the best games are the ones where I play really specific characters, and I realized, like, "Oh, these are all characters that I would have wanted to play in a game." And so, that's
Hmm.
something that I kind of, like, realized the next game I run, I should make sure the cast of characters is much smaller, um, because I'll do a better job running that.
Yeah.
But then 2, I realized that the biggest maybe problem or hiccup I've run into as a game master is that I've forgotten that the game master is also a player.
Yeah. I was honestly just about to say something like that. Yeah.
Yeah, like, I realized I've created so many campaign settings over the years that that are specifically tailored party to party that I've gotten to a point where, like, I don't necessarily enjoy any of the campaign settings I've created in a while because 'cause they've all become about the same, and so that's something I've in this sort of, like, in between period where I'm not GMing any games, I've been working on a campaign setting, um, and that's been, like in terms of, like, because I realized, like, if every time I show up to the table and I play a fighter as a player, and that's a way to honor myself as a player, how the heck do you honor yourself as a GM? Which is maybe a whole 'nother episode topic, but
I want to delve into that, but to just respond, yeah, I totally get you.
yeah.
Like
Mhm.
with the campaign I'm running right now, I'm way happier and feel like a much better GM than I have felt in a long time. And part of that has been remembering that like, oh, I can do stuff. Like it was basically breaking away from the critical role. Um
Yeah.
thing. Like I don't mean to be critical of critical role, fuck. Whatever.
No,
Um
yeah, I get you,
I don't
but,
mean
like
like but the way of doing a live play show is it needs to be super character focused. Character backstories have got to fucking matter. All of this has to tie together, like blah 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 blah. Um, however, that is not always the most. That can be really exhausting for a game master.
Mhm.
Um, and I've realized that like in thinking about it, some of my personally, some of the best games I've ever run have been the open world style games where I have set things up for people. They can explore it, they will. Like there are just things in the world. And so going back to that, I feel like a much better game master because I'm caring less about people's like strict backstories and
Mhm.
more encouraging people to be like, listen, have a backstory. I'm super there for that. I'm not even going to ignore it by any stretch of the imagination. That's just not what this game is about.
Yeah.
We are telling like the adventure is here at the table right now between all of us. So don't play a character that is more interested in stuff that's already you've already written down than is interested in what's going on right now.
Yeah.
Um, and because of that, I've been much more excited about it and dynamic, and also been more willing to just do stuff because I'm not worried. I'm like, oh, I got to get around to blah blah blah's backstory. Villain. Okay, I guess we're gonna go check out that person. Fine. Like, I wanted to do this thing, but I guess we're not doing it because I don't have time. We don't get to do this fun, weird dungeon I thought up because we got to deal with people's backstories. And since I'm not doing that, I'm much more um, excited. Like yesterday, I ran a game where the dungeon was super small, but they could like switch to different colored worlds, and then like all of the rooms would have different stuff going on in them. Um,
Oh, that's
and
fun.
so they would like swap around and try and find different like colors to get to more rooms so that they're like, oh, let's find yellow because we already have blue, so maybe we can go to a green world, and they could, and all of that was really fun. And that's not really available if you're like, nope, we have to make sure to hit their plot beat. Because I also find that when that happens, it makes one character dominate for some amount of time. Um,
Yeah.
and it's supposed to be a group game. Yeah.
Mhm.
Um, yeah, so like
Yeah.
I'm finding my footing again with it. Um, but I am remembering I very much like to play. I just find that I rarely get the chance. Um,
Yeah.
because the
Yeah.
few people who I've gotten to do that with are they're not that confident in their GMing skill. Um,
Mhm.
and so and then party dynamics or not table dynamics were just kind of unfortunate. Um,
Yeah, that's definitely the hardest part, I feel, is when you're the game master and you're watching someone else try to wrangle a table and it's, like, not working. That's always, like, really hard to watch, like, a friend go through that.
yeah, yeah, and we should probably do an episode on like table dynamics in general
We
because
should, because we have a lot of
it's
thoughts.
we do. I have many thoughts, but probably time to wrap this episode. I'm afraid.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm gonna write down table dynamics real quick so I don't forget that. Um, but yeah. Well, thanks everyone for sticking with us through another long episode. Um, really appreciate you all coming back every 2 weeks to listen to us on a Wednesday.
Hell yeah.
But you can find the show everywhere at Dane and Derek, and you can see what I'm doing on my Vimeo account, vimeo.com/benigfilms. Yeah. Where
Why
can we find you,
Benig?
Dane?
Why Benig?
Oh, so Benig is my mother's maiden name,
Oh, cool,
and I'm starting
cool,
to use
cool.
it as a stage name. Um, it was a name my grandfather made up during World War II to hide his family in the mountains,
Wow,
um, because they were a mixed Filipino-Japanese family, and
wow.
he didn't want any kind of soldier, didn't matter who, Americans, Filipinos, Japanese soldiers. He didn't want anyone finding his family, and so he made up that name and cut ties with them after the war to protect them and hide them. And it's a completely made up name. There's no meaning. There's no like translation for it other than he did it out of like love and protection. Um,
Wild.
yeah.
Wow.
So
Fuck. Okay,
yeah,
there
I
was a
only learned
whole
this like
fucking
recently.
thing. Wow, holy
Yeah,
shit. Okay, all
yeah,
right.
I only learned this like recently. This was like a family story.
Wow, okay. I did not mean to
No, you're
I
good.
feel like I don't like I need to like close out the episode, but I'm just I, I don't know how to end it. I guess fucking you can go to danewrites.com. There's things there. Um
uh,
Fuck. This happened at the last 30. Fuck it. Okay.
This
All
happened
right.
the last
Bye.
month.
Bye,
Yeah,
everybody.
bye
We just have
everyone.
to end it. Goodbye. Oh my God. What a story, Derek.
Out here on the sand, not far from land. Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold with you. I'm out here on the sand, not far from land. Sure, I'm warm, but I wish I was cold.